Now, I mentioned earlier the latest book in the Libby Sarjeant series, Murder After Midnight, has just been published. The author behind it, Lesley Cookman from the county of Kent, joins us. Lesley, afternoon.
Afternoon, Pat.
Nice to talk to you. This is, the 22nd book in the series. But when you started, did you realise the character would have such potential?
No. And when I started the first book, which was published by Accent Press, I had no idea of making it a series until the publisher actually asked me if it could go on. So I naturally said yes, but I suppose at that time 3 or 4 books maybe, but now it's 22, 23 is being written, and there are 3 short books and all sorts of short stories as well. So it's yes, Libby Sarjeant has legs.
Yes, there ain't no denying that. How would you describe her for those who haven't read the series so far?
Libby is a middle-aged woman who is shortish, plumpish, with frizzy hair, and she is incredibly nosy. That's it.
And it's her nosiness that gets her caught up in the various murders. And there have been plenty of them, haven't there?
There have indeed, yeah. Yes, at least one a book, usually more.
Right. This book particularly, I guess, you would have written during lockdown in the middle of the pandemic. How did you find that experience? Was it difficult to concentrate, or was it good to have an escape from the madness of reality?
I managed to write 2 during lockdown. The one that came out earlier, which was Murder on the Edge, and this one. And actually, I hate to say it, but my life didn't change an awful lot. In fact, my son said a few weeks into the first lockdown, "Has Mum actually noticed?" Because I was doing the same as I always do. I was sitting with my computer and writing, and so it just carried on. I didn't notice an awful lot of difference. It did become more and more difficult to concentrate, and this latest one that I'm trying to write now is being very difficult to concentrate. But in the main, writers are quite lucky because they can carry on doing what they do.
What is making it difficult for you to concentrate?
What's gone on with people I know, people I love. Everybody's been caught up somewhere or another in lockdown and in the COVID fallout. And everything begins to get on top of you a little bit, I think. I'm sure everybody feels like that.
We had some very sad news earlier this week at the radio station. We heard, of course, about the Broadstairs-based author and journalist Jane Wenham-Jones, who sadly had died at the age of 59. You knew Jane well, didn't you?
Yeah. Jane and I first became acquainted when Hazel Cushion, aforementioned, and I produced Sexy Shorts for Christmas, which was a short stories collection in aid of breast cancer. And Jane and I were both involved in that. And because we were both in Kent, we used to share lifts and go all over the place together and followed each other's careers. And of course, Jane went on to become a leading light of the Romantic Novelist Association, in that she always presented the awards ceremonies, and she went on to speak as a very well-respected speaker in all sorts of places.
And she always had such enthusiasm. Whenever we spoke to her on the programme, she was just full of beans. That's how I'll remember her, I think.
Yes, she was absolutely full of beans, and, multicoloured hair, which we all loved. And she just bounded everywhere, and she was very encouraging to new writers and just a force to be reckoned with, and she will be greatly missed.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn our attention back to the book then, Murder After Midnight. It is based here in the county of Kent. Paint a picture, if you will, Lesley, of the fictitious area in which Libby lives and these murders take place.
Well, Libby lives in a village which is somewhere between the coast and Canterbury. It's unspecified. I always say that what I did was unzip Kent and put a little bit in. And Libby Sarjeant's village is in the middle of that. And readers can put it wherever they like, really. And then you go on from Libby's village down to the coast. And the coast, there's the town of Nethergate, and then along a bit from the coast, you come to the marshes, which bear a distinct resemblance to all marshes.
Yes.
Just to let people know. And that is where my fictitious golf course is, which is the site of the murder in Murder After Midnight. And you can imagine a golf course on the marshes. It's a bit eerie, and there's nobody anywhere near, which is a very good thing, because it gives Libby a lot of scope.
And the victim in question, obviously we don't want to give too much away at this point, but the victim is Jackie Stapleton, who seems down the years to have caused quite a stir, and yet nobody really seems to know too much about her or her life.
Yes, absolutely. She is shrouded in mystery. And of course, it's that which has given rise to her murder. But as you say, we don't want to give too much away.
How did you come up with the original idea for the book? Do you have lots of ideas bubbling away, Lesley?
I've usually got a few, but this one in particular, as a lot of my ideas do, came from my eldest son. He will suddenly ring me up or come round and say, this has happened, this would be a good idea for a story. The only trouble is he doesn't bother to write them and leaves it to me. And in fact, there was a golf course that had similar problems to my fictitious golf course.
Oh.
And a friend of the family also knew all about it. So she helped. I acknowledged them both in the acknowledgements in the book. And it was a fertile feeding ground for me, as so many things are. But they should not be taken too literally, because the awful things that happen don't really happen in real life, I'm very pleased to say.
Kent author Lesley Cookman here with us this afternoon at BBC Radio Kent. For our listeners who are new to the series, do you need to start at book one, or could you read Murder After Midnight as a standalone story?
I always hope that I make each book readable as a standalone. And in fact, a lot of readers have come to the series by just reading one of them, and then they go back to the beginning and read the lot, I'm very pleased to say. So I think you could probably read it on its own. And I try and explain who everybody is. And my publishers very helpfully put a cast list at the beginning, so that you can always look people up if you can't work out where they fit into the story. So yes, I think they can read it as a standalone.
Your books always seem to have a kind of gritty realism about them. They're not your average cosy crime, are they? How do you go about striking the right balance?
Well, I shouldn't say this, but I hate the term cosy crime. But it's there, and that's how people categorize my books. But there is nothing cozy about crime. And I've used all sorts of very unpleasant themes, people trafficking, drug smuggling, homophobia, all sorts of things, none of which are cozy. And I don't necessarily try and strike a balance. I just write the stories as I see them. And the publishing world put them in the bracket of cozy. I would prefer them just to be called mysteries. But no, you're absolutely right. I do try and get quite a lot of grit in.
Yeah.
And it's quite difficult. If you read other cozy crime novels, they're no, I mustn't say twee, must I?
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
A bit late now. That they are cozier than mine are, right. I think.
Do you have no say over what's put on the back of your book? Because there are two quotes, one from Katie Ford, who says, with fascinating characters and intriguing plot, this is a real page-turner. And the other says, Lesley Cookman is the queen of cosy crime.
Now, I know, and I love them. And I have to confess that both of those people are friends of mine. And I don't mind at all. And if cozy crime gets me noticed, being in that category, who am I to complain?
Absolutely. It's always good to catch up with you. Lesley Cookman, thank you so much for being with us at BBC Radio Kent. And best of luck with the brand new book, Murder After Midnight, which is out now. Have a good afternoon, won't you?
Tomorrow night.